My name is Sharon Cohn-Campbell, and I'm a marketing manager at UC Berkeley Extension. And I want to welcome you to the new UC Berkeley Extension campuses here at 160 Spear Street. Our first art and design courses are going to be held here starting this January. And you can take courses in graphic design, interior design, landscape architecture, drawing, painting, and digital photography. So you can develop your designer's eye or build a work of portfolio with courses or professional sequence in graphic design. And tonight's lecture, we have Diane Burns, who's an internationally recognized Adobe design trainer, as well as a published author, as well as a long-time instructor at UC Berkeley Extension. And tonight's discussion is going to be about digital application techniques that you need to know to keep current in today's ever-changing design market. So if you like what you hear tonight, Diane is teaching a course on the topic beginning January 31st for 6 consecutive Saturdays. And you can find out more about this course by visiting extension.berkeley.edu/start. So without further ado, Diane Burns.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming out tonight. I know it's almost the middle of the week, except tomorrow's Friday, so that's a good thing. And it's good to see some familiar faces here and some new faces, folks that I haven't met before. Tonight's seminar is indeed about digital publishing, and it's particularly digital publishing as it relates to InDesign as an authoring tool, as one of the key authoring tools, but not the only tool that we have. And the seminar is going to run from now until 8:30. We'll take a short break about 7:30. And the last 15 minutes of the time period that we have allotted, I'll take questions and answers. So if you have a question about something I'm saying, I think for now, if you'll just jot it down and save it till the end, it will help me get through the material that I need to get through and cover tonight. Okay, so with that, I think that's all the business at hand. One other thing I will say is that I'm going to be showing you some slides from this computer, and then I'm going to be switching to my iPad and showing you some things, and then I'll be switching to my Mac and showing you some things. And so I have a little magic switch box down here, and there's a little bit of a delay in between the switching, but don't get nervous that it's not working. The screen will go dark for a moment, but we'll be okay with that. Also, at the end of this slide deck, I have a URL that you can take note of and download this slideshow. So you don't need to necessarily try to write down what you see on the screen. By 9 o'clock tonight, you can have your very own PDF of the slides that I'm going to be showing, that I'll be showing you here tonight, as well as some other materials that I'll talk about a little bit later. So with that, we'll get started. A little bit more about my background for those of you that don't know me. I have a small design firm in San Francisco called Trans-Pacific Digital. We have a specialty niche area in that we work primarily in projects that involve foreign languages, and particularly East Asian languages. If you have any questions about publishing in languages other than English or other than languages that use the Roman alphabet, I'm probably a good resource to talk to about that offline, and you can contact me later. But we're in downtown San Francisco, and this is our website. I also, as Sharon mentioned, am an author. I have a few titles on lynda.com, the online training library, but I've also recently completed an update of a book that I co-authored with Sandy Cohen about digital publishing with Adobe InDesign. And I have the actual paper book here, if anyone wants to touch it during the break and be reminded what paper is like and what the user interface is like with this. It actually works quite well. You can go from the back to the front and put your finger in the mark a spot and get to where you need to go. You'll also have in this slide deck, and you have here the address for my website, but also my email, and I always welcome questions. If you have any follow-up questions that we don't get a chance to cover tonight, shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to reply to the extent that I can. So, here we go. Here's the key question that I want to discuss with you tonight, and it is not just making digital publications out of the air, but really, I think for most of us the issue is how do we move from print to digital? So the issue is, I think for most of us, is we have some kind of content in a printed format, or that was in a printed format, and now we need to move it to some kind of digital format. As a colleague of mine who's now with Adobe once said, print is not dead, and print probably will never be dead, but print products by themselves without some digital component are pretty much gone now. Almost every publisher, every magazine, every school, everyone has to have either an online presence or the ability to be seen on a tablet, and especially the iPad and the iOS devices, right? So the question is, I've got my stuff in a printed format. It's maybe in InDesign, a lot of content is. How do I get that to an iPad? That's the other thing. If you're a designer, your customer says, I want to get it on the iPad for me. How do I get it on the iPad? So what is the ideal way that we can move from a print version of a document to a digital format, and particularly for tablets? There is no one answer at this time. There simply isn't. If you came here tonight to get a simple answer to this question, then you've come to the wrong place, and you're living in the wrong time. Come back in 5 years, and then we should have an answer. Because we need a format that is responsive in the sense that we need to be able to view it on our phone, on our iPad, or other tablet, as well as on our computer, as well as in print. So one answer to this would be put it on the web, and that is for some types of documents the answer. But as you may know, or if you think about, there are some formats or some content or collateral that don't necessarily lend themselves well to just being a website for a couple of reasons. One is the design element. If you have a brochure that carries your message and it's laid out on a page in a certain order, we can't necessarily replicate that identically on a website. The other thing is, quite frankly, when it comes to reading something, depending on what your content is, if it's a book, your great life story, for the web, you need an online connection, right? So we need a file that we can pass around in some cases. You know, I need to be able to take the document and put it on my tablet or my phone. I need a file. I need to take it on the plane with me. You know, and yeah, maybe I could write out my web pages as PDFs and, you know, do something like that, but it's a lot of work. So the web is part of the solution. It is the solution in some cases. But again, depending on your document and what your content is, it may not be the sole answer. So tonight, I want to talk about what I view as the 5 most important, not the only, but 5 of the most important digital formats that you need to be aware of and think about. No one of these is ideal for every single application. And it's so different. You know, have you written a children's book that you want to publish? Do you have collateral for your organization that you just want to make available to people? Are you a magazine publisher? Are you a book publisher? You know, everyone's needs are very different. So what I want to do tonight is try to lay out for you in a reasonably clear way what the advantages and disadvantages of each of these various formats are, so that you can start understanding, you can at least start the process of elimination. Okay, this isn't going to work for me because of that issue, or this isn't going to work for me. I need to look at this one or that one. And the formats that I'm going to talk about tonight are PDFs, and especially interactive PDFs. What do I mean by interactive? Hyperlinks, buttons, video, slideshows, animation, type that moves, things that engage the reader. So we'll talk about those. I'm going to mention briefly a whole area of technology that I am calling Flipbook services. There are a number of services like Zinio and Issue and many others where you can basically upload a PDF, and these companies have readers that are available on a variety of devices. We'll talk about those very quickly. Then we now have two flavors of ePubs. We have reflowable ePubs, which are what most of us think of when we think of an ePub or an ebook. You have a Kindle, you download a novel, you can change the type size, you can read it, read it on the beach or read it in the bed at night. But a reflowable ePub is called that because it's kind of like a website in the sense that you can change the font size, which means the layout will change, which means that the images will move, and it has certain pros and cons that we'll talk about in a moment. And this is the ePub format that has been around for a number of years. It's what iBooks supports, it's what Kindle supports, Nook readers, etc. But there is a newer format of ePub that is very, very interesting that I'm going to talk about tonight called fixed layout ePub. This is an ePub that looks more like a PDF, where the format of the page is exactly what it looks like in a PDF. If the page is highly designed, the ePub page is highly designed. And you can include an awful lot of interactivity in fixed layout ePubs. So we'll talk about the pros and cons of that. And then finally, last but not least, we'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages of creating a publication that is essentially an app for a tablet or an iPhone. And we'll, again, go over pros and cons of that. So I'm going to go through this slide deck and talk about each one, the pros and cons, and then I'm going to show you what these look like on either tablet devices or computers and kind of talk through what these pros and cons mean. So we're going to start with interactive PDF. This list, can you still hear me? I realize I'm at a level I'm not going to be able to sustain. I had a head cold last week, so who knows what will happen tonight. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list, but it's a list of the things that I felt were important to consider. First of all, I'm talking about interactive PDFs, not just flat PDFs, but PDFs that may have hyperlinks or buttons or media, video, and that kind of thing in them. What's good about them? Well, PDFs are pretty easy to create. How many of the people in the room have ever made a PDF? Everybody. How many have ever read a PDF on their computer? Everybody, right? So they're easy to create. Everybody knows what a PDF is. If they get a PDF file in their email, they don't freak out. They click it, they open it, and you're good to go. So it's easy for us to make, even from InDesign. It's a one export command. You've got a PDF file. It's a file. It's a document that you can give to someone, and anyone can read it. PDFs, the PDF format can include some interactivity, specifically media. By media, I mean video and audio files. Hyperlinks. Click here, go to a website, or click here and go to another location in the document, as well as buttons. Tap this button to play this movie. So PDFs can include these elements. It's very easy in InDesign to include these elements via InDesign and then spit out a PDF. How many people in here use InDesign? Almost everybody. Right, InDesign's great. InDesign's good. So it's very easy to include these in an InDesign file and then export them to PDF. And the cost of creating them for an organization is very low because there's not a lot of work involved. Usually the designer or production person who's created the print version of a file can just press a button and make a PDF, and they're good to go. And even including the media doesn't create a lot of overhead or a lot of resource demand that makes the cost go up. So this is good. What are some of the downs? Why doesn't everybody just make PDFs? Well, there are some downsides. One, depending on what this document is and whether or not you want to sell it, there is no what I call marketplace for PDFs. And by that I mean that even though you can read a PDF in iBooks, and even though you can read a PDF on your Kindle, you cannot buy them from the iBook store or the Kindle store. They're not for sale. They don't sell PDFs. So again, if you're just an individual and you want to get your novel out to the world, make a PDF, put it on your website, and social media the heck out of it. And you just get it out there. But if you're a publisher that needs to have a presence on these online bookstores and make money, PDFs have no marketplace. There's no central location to sell them where people can go. So that, depending on your document, can be a drawback. Then the other thing that I'm going to show you in some detail is that, interestingly, while on computers everyone is comfortable reading a PDF, they know what to do with it, when you start getting to digital devices like an iPad, there is no standard reader on these devices. If you think about it, most people have Adobe Reader on their computer. You probably had to download it at some point, though. You may not recall that you did. Or if you have a Mac, you have Preview. Or if you're on Windows, you have the Windows Reader. But on an iPad, for example, there is no standard reader. The iOS, the operating system, can read PDFs, but it has almost no support for any kind of interactivity. So if you're trying to now include interactivity in your documents, which is part of the fun of doing digital things, there are some real issues there. There are a number of third-party apps. There's an Adobe Reader for the iPad, there's Goodreader, there's PDF Expert, but they all have different levels of support for interactivity. And again, I'm going to show you in a moment how these work. And that's my last point here, is not all interactive features are supported by all of these, okay? So with that, I'm going to do my first switch. Wish me luck. Here I go. Let's see, PC, VGA for, I'm going to go to my Macintosh computer. There we go. So what was that? About a count of 10. I want to show you 3 PDFs. I'm going to show them to you on my Macintosh, and then I'm going to show them to you on my iPad. Okay? So this PDF is a newsletter, and it is a subscription-based newsletter. It's some kind of financial information, and the subscribers pay, thousands and thousands of dollars every year to get this publication, this PDF that is sent to them. The only interactivity in it, it's fairly straightforward. The document uses InDesign's fabulous table of contents command so that all of these items on the table of contents are hyperlinks, and they go automatically to the page that they're supposed to. And the only other interactivity we have is up here in the navigation, where we have some hyperlinks that take us to different sections of the document. So this is a strategy department. I'm going to go to product development. That actually takes me back to the first page. Let's try another one. I'll go to the finance section. So these are simple hyperlinks. They were set up in InDesign, and they go to the appropriate section in the document. Very straightforward, right? And by the way, this client actually does not have any print document. Their subscribers always receive a PDF. Okay, so that's one. And I'll go ahead and show you all of the PDFs on the Mac, and then I'll do all of them on the iPad, and you'll just have to remember, because the switching thing, 10 seconds, that's a lot of time lost. So that's one. Now here's a very different kind of PDF. It's a map of Turkey, and it uses buttons. These city names that you see here are actually buttons. And when I tap on them, a photograph and a description of the city comes up. I have a little close box, and I can click here, and there's a description of Konya, Cappadocia, Ephesus, Bodrum, etc. This was all done in InDesign. These are all buttons, and it uses a feature called Show Hide Buttons that lets me create this interactivity. And you can really do a lot with this. I mean, if you start imagining, you click here and something comes up, and you click there and that closes and something new comes up, it's really quite powerful. So that's PDF number 2. It uses buttons. That's all that's in here. No hyperlinks, no video or anything. The third PDF I'm going to show you pulls out all the stops. It uses all of my secret tricks for including animation and buttons, which if you read anywhere, it says you can't do animations in PDFs. Well, you can, but. So this one I'm going to open because something happens when you open the first page. Type comes in, fades in, mark it, boom. This is a PDF. Oh, boing. I have a button down here that helps me navigate through the pages. I have videos. Oh, I have to click here. I'm not even looking at my own interface. This is broken, wrong PDF. Basically, I click that button, the videos play. You just have to go along with me here. And then I have a table of contents. I have buttons that when I roll over them, they become 100%. And if I click here, here's my flowers section. Here's my text. The flowers all float in. And then I have an animated, I don't know if you guys can see the bottom of the screen here, I have an animated table of contents that when I roll over it, it comes out, and I can come back to the table of contents, and then we can look here. So this is a PDF created in InDesign. It does use a trick. The way all of this animation was done was to create the animation in InDesign and export it as a SWF file. What's a SWF file? A SWF file is the format that Adobe Flash uses. What's Adobe Flash? This is a technology created by Adobe 10 years ago to do animation on computers. A lot of games are written in Flash. A lot of websites that you go to have Flash components. And Flash really looked like it was going to take over the world until Steve Jobs decided that it stunk. And it would not be allowed on any of Apple's mobile devices. So come about 2010, the Flash development came to a screeching halt, and Adobe had to change gears and back off of Flash support for things like PDFs and in InDesign and sort of rethink the whole thing. But most computers still have Flash. In fact, all versions of Acrobat up to the latest version, version 11, whether you're on Windows or PC, actually have Flash built into them. So most of you, I could probably email you this PDF, and if you opened it on your computer, it could be a laptop or a desktop, you would probably experience it exactly as you're seeing it tonight. That's rich. That's great. It also means that even if I don't care what your computer can do, I can bring my computer to your office and make my presentation to you on my computer and use a PDF to make something kind of, glitzy and sexy, okay? So that's the computer. But now let's move it to the iPad and take a look. And we're now switching to the iPad. 1001, 1002. I should have short, oh good, this came up, that's good. This is my, I've emailed myself the the first PDF that you saw. It's a newsletter type document. It only has hyperlinks in it. So I've emailed this. I would experience basically the same thing if I downloaded it from a website. So I'm going to tap on the PDF here. It is now opening in Mail, which is part of the iOS. Okay, so remember, iOS can read PDFs, but it has somewhat limited support. So I have all my little previews. It looks fantastic. The table of contents works, as do the links at the top. iOS supports one interactive element that we can create in InDesign, and that's hyperlinks. So this document, which uses only hyperlinks, works fantastically well. Okay? So I can just view it on the iOS. In fact, to be honest with you, we first put this document out using buttons, and they don't work in the iOS. So we had to go back and rework everything with hyperlinks. So that one's pretty straightforward. That's good news. Now, we'll go to the next one. Remember, the second one was the map of Turkey. And actually, it's already displaying in my email, but I can't really get to it to open it exactly. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, and I want to open this particular PDF to show you a couple of things. I'm going to open it in Dropbox. Anybody in here use Dropbox? It's a file sharing system. If you're going to start working with digital devices and developing content for digital devices, rule number one, you need to test your publications on the device itself. And rule number two is Dropbox will save your neck. It's really a wonderful thing. So at any rate, I'm going to come out to Dropbox, and I'm going to open up that second PDF, Show Hide Buttons. It's going to take it a moment to load. There it is. Well, my buttons aren't even showing up. Dropbox is using the iOS to view this PDF, and the iOS doesn't support buttons. And when I say doesn't support, I mean it doesn't support them. It doesn't even show them. Well, that's okay. I'm clever. I have some third-party PDF readers on my iPad because I want to read PDFs. So I'm going to do the same thing I would do in Mail, which is to press this little arrow, and I'm going to open in. Let's start with Adobe Reader. If anything can make this look good, it'd be Adobe's product, right? Awesome. Open in Adobe Reader. Here we go. Very exciting. There are the buttons. See them? Beautiful. All right, let's get going. Tap. Oh, wait. Tap. It shows the buttons, but it doesn't have any functionality. Okay, so now what do we do? Well, I'm going to open this back up in Dropbox, and I'm going to open it in another application. One of the applications on the iPad that has the most support for interactive features is called PDF Expert. And by the way, one of the handouts you're going to be able to download when I give you the URL is a document created by a colleague of mine at lynda.com that was presented at a conference last year that lists all of these applications, how much they cost, where they're linked to, what their strong points are, what their weak parts are, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll show you the handout a bit later, but you'll have information about these by the end of the class. So I'm going to open this in PDF Expert. It should support this stuff. Not really. It doesn't display text in buttons. The buttons work, but it doesn't support the text. Okay? So you start to get the idea of where we hit the wall really quickly. Now, I have to show you the last one because it's kind of hysterical. The Flash-based one. Back to my email, that was number 3. Okay. Isn't that great? By the way, I should mention too, the one PDF reader that most folks have on their iPad is iBooks, because iBooks can read PDFs, right? So I'm just curious. Let's try this show hide button. Let's see. Am I in Dropbox? I just want to try it in iBooks. Where am I? Come on. Open in. I totally forgot about iBooks, because that's something everybody already have, right? So that would be a good one. Adobe Reader doesn't help us that much. So let's see what iBooks does. Oh, iBooks, iOS, doesn't show buttons. Right. Okay. So anyway, this illustrates probably more than I even need to the problem that we come to with PDFs on tablets. If they're flat PDFs, they look beautiful, they work great. But if there is anything more in the way of interactivity, more than a hyperlink, you're in trouble. Now, I want to mention, though, one other thing. I talked about, well, if I have a PDF that only works on my computer, I can bring my computer and make a presentation. Well, the same thing is true of PDFs. I lastly want to show you a PDF that we created for a client that has hyperlinks, certain types of buttons, and video in it. And what they wanted to do with this was to give it to their salespeople to take their iPads around and make a presentation. And actually, I hope I still have it in PDF Expert. I'm going to just open it up because it takes some time to process it. Let's see if I can find it. Documents. Here we go. So this company equipped their salespeople with iPads. They bought PDF Expert, $10 a shot for all their salespeople, and we ended up being able to make a really nice PDF for them, drawings and pricing. At the top, we used graphics buttons, which show up better in PDF Expert. The other buttons I showed you were live text buttons. These are graphics. So, again, we had to test what works, what doesn't work. And then we had this for their salespeople to use this to, show videos of the furniture that they were selling and all of this kind of thing. So for them, the PDF was the simplest answer because they were going to control the presentation of it. But if you're not controlling that, there are some serious drawbacks that start to occur. Okay? So that's PDFs, and that's the crazy world of PDFs. Why doesn't Adobe give more support for PDFs on tablets? And why do they even make it so hard to get animation and stuff? Why do you have to know tricks to even get animation on PDFs on a computer? Part of the reason is you should just be aware that Acrobat is developed in a completely different part of Adobe, and Acrobat's big business is secure documents, and that's where their primary focus is. And it turns out for applications to play things like animation and some of these other interactive effects, it actually has to go into the OS of the computer that it's on and use part of that to render this stuff on screen. I just learned this. This is for the geeks amongst you, the real airheads. But for example, on Macs, applications have to use WebKit, which is part of the underlying structure of the iOS. And if Acrobat does that, it makes security leaks for the government documents that have to be secure. So we may never see really fun, robust interactivity in the PDF format. I don't think that, sadly, I don't think that's where the future will be. And it's kind of a bummer because it has so many advantages otherwise. Okay? Now, moving along, let me do a switch back to my slideshow, see if I hit the right button. Oh, it came up for me. So the next thing I want to talk about is a Oh, I've actually already talked about the PDF workflow. This is from our book. Basically, you go from InDesign to a PDF file. The issue becomes who's viewing it on what device. That's basically what I just talked about. And another page that'll be in the handouts you get that is from our book is on the left, I have a list of all of the different types of interactivity that you can create using InDesign at least. And the middle column shows what interactive elements are supported on computers and what interactive elements are supported on tablet devices. So that's just a little more of a drill down on basically the stuff I've just been showing you. Now, moving along, Flipbook services like Zinio, Issue, that kind of thing. I have to mention those. They don't involve anything special with InDesign or any tricks, but basically these are services that publications or individual authors for some of these sites just give their PDF to. And once you do that, you pay a small fee, and these readers have applications for tablets, applications for phones, as well as for the computer, and your stuff can get out there. You can say, go to Zinio and buy my magazine of my cool photographs that I took last year on summer vacation. You can do this. So there's a lot about them that's very attractive. The two things to be aware of, though, is that once you provide your publication to these services, the only way that people interact with your publication is via the user interface provided by these services. So if it's not good, then that is not good, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't control the way it's experienced. A Zinio magazine can only be experienced through the Zinio interface, for example. And the other thing is they typically have virtually no interactivity whatsoever. Again, this may or may not be an important issue for you, but if you have extra assets, if you have videos that you want to include in a publication, or if whatever your publication is really lends itself to having buttons or things that move or slideshows that would really increase the interest in it, then these are not for you. So with that, I'm going to take just a moment. I'm going to switch over to my Mac and just show you, just so we're all on the same page, show you a couple of examples of how these work. This is the Zinio website, and again, you're going to get a handout that lists about 15 of these different services and the different prices and what have you. And basically, there are a zillion publications. Zinio has mostly, the world's largest newsstand, has mostly magazines. That's Zinio's specialty. But I can click here, and the magazine will open eventually, and I can experience this on my computer. I can put it, view it on my laptop, or I can view it on the Zinio app on my iPad. So here's the cover of this magazine. Down at the bottom is the Zinio interface. So basically I click and I have what was the original magazine. They made a PDF, and then here's the table of contents. It does have links in it. So for some people, this is a great solution. Okay? It's out there, and it's generally not that expensive. Issue is a little bit more interesting because Issue has a wider variety of publications, and if I'm not mistaken, it is a site where anybody can upload their stuff, and maybe at no charge. And the advantage, why would you do this? So first of all, it's a general URL you can send people to. Go see my magazine, my photography magazine at this website. But here's the important thing. There's a reader for iPads or for tablets and phones. There's an Issue reader. And so this is a magazine. It's some kind of art magazine. And here's the interface that Issue uses. And again, It's the same interface. Basically, I can turn pages. There's generally some kind of, I'm going to click this button. I don't know what it's going to do. Yeah, give me navigation at the bottom to go through various pages and so forth. Okay? Quick flip to my iPad, and I'll just show you that same publication on my iPad. Here's the issue reader. So this means that people could consume your publication on various devices. Here's the very same publication, ding, 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 and okay, let me add it. So I tap on it, and just like it did on the website, it's going to open up, and I can basically page through it and bring up navigation. So this is a perfectly viable solution, and I have to tell you, a lot of my training clients, private training clients, are magazines, and many, many magazines started out and still keep a presence on one of these websites because it's just too easy and too inexpensive, and it gives them an easy, low-cost online presence. And the fact that all of these Flipbook services, as I'm calling them, have almost all of them have a tablet app. Then you're on the iPad. Get it on the iPad, sure. Upload it to Issue, and you're there. So this has to be considered. Again, no interactivity whatsoever. So if that's key for you, then you have to take this off your list, right? Okay. Next up, before our break, I think we'll have time, I want to talk about reflowable ePubs. Again, what is a reflowable ePub? It's what we sometimes call an eBook. ePub is actually a file format. It's a file. I can email you an ePub. The reflowable ePub is available on many, many different devices. On the iPad, it's read in iBooks. Everybody knows Kindle. Barnes & Noble, I think, still makes Nook. They keep changing their mind. They keep saying they're not, and then they do, but they're still making Nook readers. There are other readers coming on the market. Kobo is a Japanese company that's starting to make some penetration in the U.S. market. These are widely available on mobile devices. We don't generally read ebooks on computer screens. So if an important part of your audience is, there is a Kindle reader for Mac, and if you have the newest OS from Apple, or the second newest OS, Mavericks, you have iBooks on your computer. But if you want to put a file format out that people can read on any digital device, ePubs may not be for you because ePubs are mobile, generally, or what we would call portable devices. So just something to consider. There is no ubiquitous ePub reader. You send an ePub to somebody on a Windows computer, chances are they absolutely won't be able to open it. So I'll show you some of these ePubs in a moment, but again, the key thing is that they are under the hood like websites. That means that we can change the font size, we can make it larger, we can actually change the font, and it does not keep a design intact. In fact, when designers realize what reflowable ePubs are, they cry and gnash their teeth. Do you know what gnashing of teeth are? Yeah. So it is not suitable for a catalog. It is not suitable for your glossy magazine of your photographs, and it's certainly not suitable for the children's book that you authored in your spare time last year. The other thing about reflowable ePubs, regardless of where they come from, but including InDesign, require a fair amount of preparation, which in turn has a cost at some level. Okay. When you create, sorry this is so tiny. Let's see if I know how to zoom up. Oh, look, I'm using Windows. Okay, so let's see if I can get this up a little bit higher. The workflow from InDesign is that you prepare the InDesign file. I'll talk about that in a moment, what that involves. You proof the ePub. Adobe has a free app called Adobe Digital Editions that's available for Mac or Windows that you can proof your book, make sure that the headline's where it's supposed to be and the text is where it's supposed to be, and if you have images that they're in the right order. You need to proof it. Then you may or may not optionally need to go in and edit the ePub under the hood. What's under the hood? If you unzip an ePub file, it has CSS and it has HTML files. So when I say edit, I mean go in and edit the CSS and HTML. Again, the designers, they don't feel well. They're not feeling too good about now. I will say that InDesign has gotten much better, and we recently did a fairly complicated reflowable ePub, and we had to do almost nothing in the CSS and HTML. If you ever tried to make an ePub from CS6 and you decided to never do it again, if and when you upgrade to CC, try it again. Adobe did the biggest feature change between 6 and CC for InDesign was absolutely ePub export. Okay? So we may or may not have to edit the HTML. There is a process called validation. There are services online that you put your ePub up on, and it tells you if the syntax of the code is basically correct. It must be validated in order to then publish it to either Apple iBooks Store or the Kindle Store from Amazon. Okay? So that's roughly the process. And let's look at the interactivity. No animations. Hyperlinks are good. Buttons, no. Forms, no. Audio, yes, but. Video, yes, but. Audio and video are kind of crazy. iBooks supports them really well. Most Kindle devices don't, unless it's a Kindle Fire. So it's a really mixed bag. The other stuff we don't care about so much. So let's take a quick look at reflowable ePubs. I'm going to go to my iPad, and I'm going to open iBooks. And here's my library of PDFs. I want my books in iBooks. And here is an ePub that started as a print book, like honestly 10 or 20 years ago, and the publisher wanted to put it out on iBooks because I guess this golfer is really famous if you're into golfing. And so here's the big thing with reflowable ePubs is I can come in and I can make the font bigger. Like if my eyes are getting tired, I can make the font much bigger. And I can change the fonts. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so fun. Oh, look at that. Now I can really read it. So you see where I'm going here. It's like you have no control over the design. You can have images, and they will be in order behind a certain bit of text. But you don't. But if I keep making the type larger, this is going to keep moving and moving and moving. There is some formatting. We have color, etc. And this particular book was published only on iBooks because, again, the publisher had video assets that he wanted to include, and so we include.
All grips are okay.
All grips are okay.
Are in balance.
Okay. But this would not be readable on most Kindle devices, with the exception of Kindle Fire, newer Kindle Fire devices. Okay. So that's one, and then quickly another more traditional type is another reflowable ePub. This is a novel, not a novel, it's actually someone's life story, and these aren't the best images to show examples of, but it's basically flowing text with images in stream, and again, I can make the type really big, or I can make it small. iBooks, Reflowable ePubs do have table of contents in them, and this particular book had color plates. And we started with an InDesign file. This book was published on the Kindle. We went from InDesign to ePub, ready for iBooks, and then Amazon has an online conversion utility that creates a reflowable ePub for Kindle. Why do we have to convert them? Because Amazon does not use a standard ePub format, folks, and eventually I think it's going to hurt them. They use a format called MOBI and KF8. And it is largely a dumbed down version of the ePub standard. Just like HTML has a committee that decides on standards, so too does ePub. And Amazon keeps their own proprietary format. And so that's why certain Kindle devices you can't embed fonts, you can't do audio and video. It has some limitations. But this was fine. What happened to these color plates on like a Kindle Paperwhite is they were simply in grayscale. But the story could be read. Okay? So very quickly, before we take our break, for those amongst you who are InDesign people, I want to go into InDesign and show you just the files that were used to create this last ePub that I showed you. So here we have the original, am I up on the screen? Here we have the original InDesign file, images, text, images in stream here. Notice that there's a bar element above the captions here, and there's text wrap and that sort of thing. So when we created the ePub, we decided to drop the bar because it's a format. You can't really do that. Basically, you can have text, an image, text, an image, text, and an image in stream. So this was the original file. A couple of quick key things is that this document already, thank goodness, made pretty good use of paragraph styles. When you start working in digital publications, and particularly if you get into reflowable ePubs, you can no longer avoid using all of those features of styles that you learned in your InDesign class at UC, but you ignore it in print. Because you can't tell, I can't look at your print document and tell if you used paragraph or character styles. You can get away with murder. But in reflowable ePubs in particular, which are, remember, underneath the hood websites, styles are what become they become CSS styles, and they are essential to controlling the appearance of your document. This is also true if you're in a workflow where your InDesign file is going to a website. If it's going to HTML, you have to be really, really clean with your coding and your styling. You can't get away with the messy files anymore. So when we prepped it, though, it looked like this. First of all, the caption that was sitting here in text, we incorporated in a Photoshop file because there's no way in a reflowable ePub to make text go on top of an image. So we had to do it in Photoshop. The other really important thing about reflowable ePubs in InDesign is that there is an export order. And basically, to get an image to appear at a particular point in the text, you have to do what's called anchor it in InDesign. Those of you who took my class know what that is. But basically, the picture has to be stuck into the text. And what you see here, for example, is there's a graphic that we wanted to appear under the early 70s, and so we anchored it to here. It doesn't matter where it sits on the InDesign page. it's anchored to here, so it's going to come out after that text when we export it to the ePub. Okay? And just to show you a couple of more pages, again, this isn't, look at this, the images are even over here. But we grouped them together, we anchored them to here. We pulled them out of the way so we could see where we were anchoring them to. And every image has an object style on it. Why? Because when we export it into our ePub, it creates what's called a div. And if you've ever done any coding, divs are good because you can grab them and describe them in your CSS and control what they look like. If that, you know, you don't have to, this isn't a CSS class, God forbid, but just trust me, the structure of the InDesign document becomes really important. So basically, we went through the document, we cleaned up the styles, we anchored the images, we applied object styles to things. Again, it doesn't matter where these sit on the page. When this image is exported, it's going to come here, and we ended up with the Reflowable ePub. We then went to, in this case, our client's Apple Connect account. It's a free service that you sign up for, and you go online and you fill out a form. And once your ePub is validated and ready to go and has a table of contents and that sort of thing, you upload it to Apple. And you say how much you want to charge for it, what countries you want it published in, etc., and your book is published. But no interactivity, no design. Again, it depends on what your document is, though. If it's your life story, your great novel that you just want to get out to the world, make a PDF and put it on your website, and put a book up in iBooks or the Amazon Kindle store, and you're good to go. Okay? So we've gotten through some of our formats. The exciting stuff is coming up after our break. Fixed layout ePubs. Very interesting, the most promising new technology we have coming, and apps. So we'll take a 5-minute break. I just say that. I really mean 10, but not 12. We'll take a short break and come back and wrap it up and then do our Q&A. Before I move on to fixed layout ePubs, it's just been brought to my attention that the UC Berkeley Extension website, as of last week, is using a Flipbook service. And so if you want to see one in action, go to the UC Berkeley Extension website. This is the Art and Design department. And the brochures for each of these departments, there's a little thumbnail here. And when you click it, it opens a viewer. This is in-house digital publishing, is how it's branded. Whether or not it's on the matrix that I'll be providing you later, I do not know. But it basically, right on your website, opens up with a little flip page effect, and I don't know if you can hear, but there's a sound. I hate that. But be that as it may, here we are in the UI of this service, whatever it is, but it makes a nice, easy way for basically a copy, the man who's an editor / copywriter genius at UC Berkeley office found this, has the designer provide PDFs, and they're done. So last word on the Flipbook service. I thought this was an example worthy of showing you. Now, moving along, we have about half an hour. We're going to move along to fixed layout ePubs. Fixed layout ePubs are part of the standard ePub specification. CSS3 and HTML5 for the geek heads in here. And fixed layout ePubs, as I mentioned, are more like PDFs, but they are ePubs. They are HTML under the hood. They are supported fully and have been supported for a long time by Apple's iBooks. That is your main market. They are also fully supported by all Kobo readers, K-O-B-O, Kobo readers. And Amazon has its own flavor of fixed layout, but of course it's a bit different from everyone else's. And if you're coming from InDesign, you can create a fixed layout ePub for iBooks with one Command, export, fixed layout, you're done. You cannot get from InDesign to Amazon's fixed layout ePubs without donating blood and your firstborn and all of that. There's nothing automatic about it. So I'm actually getting to the con of this. Just be aware it's not universal. It's not a Kindle thing if that's where you're going. And like reflowable ePubs, fixed layout ePubs are generally not consumed on computers. Macintosh Mavericks users can read them, but PC reader users not so much. Adobe Digital Editions, which is this previewer that you can download for free from Adobe, can display them. So a Windows user could conceivably view it, but that's kind of getting into be a convoluted workflow, if you will. So at any rate, it is available on many devices, not as many as reflowable ePubs. It keeps your design layout intact. And the most interesting thing to me and the most exciting thing coming from InDesign is it supports virtually all types of interactivity from InDesign, which includes some very interesting animations. In 2010, CS5 introduced an animation and timeline feature in InDesign. And it is very well designed and lets you do some intriguingly interesting things with InDesign. But the output of these animations was Swift. And it literally came out about 6 months before Jobs killed Swift and Flash on iOS devices, and nobody used the features. Even Adobe's tablet creation tools, Digital Publishing Suite, or DPS, can't support InDesign's animations. However, with the introduction of InDesign CC 2014, the animation feature was rewritten so that it exports HTML5. So now we can embed that back into fixed layout ePubs. Okay? Without further ado, I've got more slides on workflow and all of that. Well, let me show you the workflow. And I'm going to use Windows again. InDesign, export, proof it, look at it in either Adobe Digital Editions or iBooks, make sure it looks good, validate it at one of these validation services, and then publish it. You're done. That's the end of the story. Okay. So with that, I'm going to go to my iPad and show you some fixed layout ePubs. I'm going to first start with one that I actually downloaded several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, that has nothing to do with InDesign or interactivity, but I want to show you what a fixed layout ePub looks like. This is a book from National Geographic about pandas, and fixed layout ePubs were initially used primarily by children's book publishers because these documents really needed to keep the layout intact. They needed the type where it was, they needed the images where they were, etc., etc. So there's no interactivity in this. Okay, fine. I think this is just a sample. But basically, these pages operate much like a PDF. We've got these little thumbnails at the bottom. We've got a graphic table of contents. But it's an ePub. I can email you the file, and Apple sells it. You can sell it in iBooks. You can put a link on your website to where it is on iBooks, and off you go. So that's what a fixed layout ePub. It's basically like a PDF. Now, let's take it a step further. So I'm going to show you some very simple examples of, this is a fixed layout ePub demo that was created directly from InDesign. So there's a cover. Here's a table of contents. Let's go to the first page. Notice that the type and steps are floating in. That's animation. Fade in with the type. And then these steps are actually buttons, and as you tap on them, the photograph of the pose becomes 100%. That's one type of thing that you can do. Here's another page where we have a little sidebar that scrolls up. That's animation. And then this uses buttons. Pose 3, pose 4. This is sellable in the iBooks store. Okay? So now let's switch over to InDesign. What does this look like? Let's go back to InDesign. Am I up yet? Great. So I'm just going to show you very quickly a couple of things here. Actually, I turned the page before this floated in. So basically, if I want this type to float in, it's my print layout from InDesign, but then I open the animation panel. I don't know if you can hear. Let me drag this over and try to zoom in a little bit. So this is just what the type says, yoga. I have a ton of presets. Fade in, fly in from the left, grow large, spring, zoom, all kinds of things. Do I want it to, how long do I want it to play for? How many times do I want it to play? Do I want it to rotate as it's fading in? Do I want it to come in and go whoop, like this? You know, what do I want it to do? So you use this, what I think is a pretty well designed panel. It's fairly easy to understand. And you basically select objects and apply animations to them. How do you preview these? Or do you have to go to an ePub to preview them? No, this is a very important point. We have a preview panel. Let's see how that's... So you saw yoga float in and then natural fitness for body and spirit, okay? So that's how animation works in InDesign. I want to show you just a few other examples, some studies, if you will, that we did. This was done, this is an InDesign file, line across the sky. Here's the preview. This is what it would look like on the iPad. Simple. InDesign's not an animation program. You're not going to like draw a Bugs Bunny cartoon using it. But you can do some really, really interesting things with the page with these, using these features. From a more corporate point of view, we have, I'm opening my aliases here, all documents. Let's take a look. So here's an information brochure about a bicycle. This is what the InDesign file looks like. It's just images and text frames. But when it plays in a fixed layout ePub, what do you need to consider when you buy a bike? The wheels, the frame, blah, 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 the gears. This was done by the designer at my shop who's an avid bicyclist. Go figure. The handlebars, the seat. InDesign, 100% InDesign, no JavaScript was grabbed from anywhere or anything else. A couple of more examples that I'd like to show you is, this is a study that we're doing for a book publisher. And again, I'm just showing you the preview in InDesign because it's faster than doing it on the iPad. So this is the file. It's actually a book. It's called Nail Candy, and it's about doing those really intense fingernail painting. Amazing, amazing stuff. So these are the steps. This effect is called comic book. So basically the spread comes in, and step 1, the brushes just paint the effect. Then the 5th one is sprinkled on. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but the sprinkles come on. And then at the end, there's a comic playing because it's comic book. It's an old Bugs Bunny. You can't hear the sound, which is probably just as well. He had kind of an annoying voice, didn't he? Yeah. So these are just some simple examples of what can be done with buttons, animation, and fixed layout ePubs. So to me, this makes this a very interesting format for certain types of things. Again, depending on what your document is, where you want to go with it, what you want to do with it. And if you have a highly designed book, it lets you keep the design, but also take it up a notch by doing some really, really interesting things. So animations is a whole course. We could do like a 6-hour course just on InDesign animations very, very easily. But I wanted to just give you a taste of that and know that you can go from here to here very easily. It can be incorporated into a publication and then sold in the iBook store or the Kobo reader. There's an extension to the Chrome browser called Readium that also supports fixed layout ePubs. I think it's in that matrix that I'll be sharing with you. So that's fixed layout ePubs. Now, I have just a few more minutes, and I want to talk about our 5th category of potential directions that you can go with digital publications. I love this. Almost everything is yes. Yes, animations. Yes, buttons. Yes, video. I didn't. You saw the video in the little cartoon. Now we're going to talk about tablet apps. Tablet apps are sold through the Apple App Store on iTunes, or they're sold through Google Play for Android devices. And they are publications that have been turned into apps. The pros are they are available on many, many different devices, certainly any kind of mobile device, phone or tablet, not usable on computers at all. They're strictly for mobile. They keep the design layout intact. They support most interactive features, not all, and most of the services that let you create apps specifically from InDesign files will include what are called analytics. How many people are reading your publication, and you can even put in code that tells you how many people turned to an article and how long they stayed on it. These are analytics. Who's your audience? And for pay-for publications, they are essential. They're not just nice, they're essential. Because magazines, for example, that's how they sell advertising and that sort of thing. The downside to them can be that you have to be a member of, for example, you have to be an Apple developer. You have to pay $99 a year and sign up to the Apple Developer Program. And then once you've prepared your InDesign document using free tools, the creation tools are free. Once you're ready to make it an app, Adobe has published a convenient 100-page book that tells you all the steps you need to go through to publish it to the App Store. It's not complicated, it's just lots and lots and lots and lots of steps, and IPA files, and and validation keys, and all this kind of stuff, and test versions, and so on and so forth. So I think the argument could be made it requires a team, and it requires creative people and people who have the guts to take on what is slightly more challenging from a developer's point of view. The other thing that is very key to understand about creating an app is that it can be very expensive. Adobe has its own set of tools for creating apps called the Digital Publishing Suite. The creation tools are free. You already have the tools in your copy of InDesign if you have InDesign 6 or higher. There is a folio folio overlay panel, and a folio builder panel. These are all the tools you need to create the app. But when you go to sign up with Adobe to convert that into an app, you are looking at probably at least $10,000 a year, plus a per download cost. This is new. Any of you who follow this may be aware that one of the things that Adobe put into the Creative Cloud subscription service to try to encourage people to join it was it had a subscription level for DPS, this digital publishing suite, that was free to Creative Cloud users. I don't know how many of you were aware of that, but for free, I could make an app publication in InDesign if I knew how, and if I was signed up with Apple for $99 and went through this 100-page book, it was no cost from Adobe for me to put my app, that's a book of my photographs, in the App Store. It was only for Apple, wasn't for Android devices. Free. But in November, Adobe dropped that completely. It is no longer available, and the press release recommended that individual publishers that wanted to do a book type application use fixed layout ePubs. There was a mid-level subscription service for DPS called Professional Version, which cost about $500 a month and a few cents per download, and Adobe is about to cancel that. So it will now be only the top level of the subscription that is negotiated on a per company basis. So if you're part of a large company, you should consider DPS. It's the gold standard. So there's DPS to create apps, but there are also starting to be a host of other services. Two important ones are a company called Aquafatus and another one called Twixel. They give you, like DPS, they give you free plugins. You put them in InDesign, you create your app, and then they help you convert that InDesign file to an app at a much lower cost than DPS. And this matrix that I'm going to show you, give to you as a handout, has all of these services and the cost and what have you. So very quickly, what am I talking about? Let me switch over to my iPad, and let's look at some apps. Now, for DPS, I mentioned a single book type thing, but a DPS was originally developed for magazines, and the idea is that you don't just do a single book. You have a viewer app, and you have like monthly issues of something. So the app does more than just like show you a pretty page on the screen. It manages subscriptions and all that stuff. And one of the early adapters was, well, you're not seeing that, are you? Let's see what we got here. Okay, great. So here's, so I went to Newsstand. Back up. So I'm in Newsstand on the iPad. This is Martha Stewart Living. This is the latest issue. And it has pages. These are the ads. It's you know, looks just like the original, but it has little interactivity in it. These are little plus signs that when I press them, nothing happens. Oh, I see. You know what's happening? Right down. I'm sorry, it's so low. Right down in here, when I tap on this little plus sign, the name of the perfume changes, for example. So it's a little bit hard to see. Let's find something a little bit more sexy. This was created in DPS. And most DPS apps have a standard interface. You have a table of contents here that is clickable, of course. Letter from the editor. And then you have a view that lets you see thumbnails like this. So I can go through here, and there's across the top of the screen, there's a little icon, let's see if we get to it, that will show me if there's interactivity in something or not. Let me see if I can find a good example for you. All right, let's see what we got here. So blondes have more fun. The recipe comes up, you close it, you go back to the page. Some of these pages have videos, ads. Looks just like the magazine. This is a series, again, the same kind of thing where you press a plus sign and you come into something. The magazine that was the big beta test site for DPS was Wired magazine, so they really took out all the stops. I just didn't have one downloaded for tonight. Wired occasionally puts up free issues. If you have an iPad, go to the App Store, download the Wired magazine viewer. It's just the viewer, there's no issues in there. Then go to that viewer app, and if you look, May of last year, Adobe paid for one of their issues. And you can download it, and you can see the full range of possibilities of what these tablet apps can do. But these are big companies. Wired magazine, Condé Nast Publications use DPS. Martha Stewart, Omnimedia. Omnimedia. It's big. And so it's well worth it to them to use these tools and to pay for them, right? So that's basically how most of these navigate. You go down through articles vertically. Oh, here's a little button that says how to. Takes me to another page, that sort of thing. You can have videos. What DPS does is it takes your layout page and it makes a flattened PDF file, so the text is not searchable. It's another issue. Does your text need to be searchable? ePubs, it's searchable. PDFs, it's searchable. DPS apps, it's not searchable. So you just need to be aware of that. And now I have another, so that's Newsstand, that's Martha Stewart Living. I have some other apps that were created with a competitor to DPS called Twixel. It's a Belgian company. Again, you get free tools to do the creative stuff in InDesign. I'm in the Twixel viewer. This is a file from a colleague of mine in, I'm going to flip it upside down. I hope no one gets seasick. A colleague of mine who lives in Brussels. Touch to start the interactive experience. This is all done in InDesign using the Twixel plugins that, kind of like the animation I showed you, there's a panel that lets you set something to move here and do this, and there's a sound file. And then we scroll over to the next page. There's a table of contents here. This scrolls down, the page scrolls down. This was probably an InDesign page that was longer than a standard print page. And it's under development, so it's not fully complete, but it makes it very easy to, this was done for the Brussels tour organization or what have you, as an iPad brochure that they will put in the App Store. It'll be free. It won't be any cost to anybody. And so they can put a link on their website that says download our brochure for your iPad, and they'll give a link to iTunes, and you'll go there and you'll download it for free, and you have all of this information. Some of the DPS competitors use live text, and Twixel makes searchable files if you need them. So again, Twixel and Aquafatis are the big DPS competitors, and I think as Adobe moves to just doing the really expensive high-end subscription models for DPS, that we're going to see a lot more competition in that area. Lastly, I have 5 minutes just to kind of connect it back to InDesign. I want to show you, this is a generic DPS viewer, and I have an InDesign file that, it actually came from Adobe, I didn't do this, that has some elements in it. What you're seeing at the top here is something called an image sequence. It's a series of photographs, sunny, cloudy, and they're just cycling through the images. I'm going to go to the next page. This is a DPS feature called Pan and Zoom. I tap on the image. I can move it around. This is a scrollable text frame. So for things like recipes with long directions, you could have the recipe all on one page, but scroll up. And then finally, the good old slideshow. So that's the file. This is one thing you can do with DPS apps, just for your information, is even if you don't publish them, you can share them with anyone that has an Adobe ID. I've often thought of you in your school. So for example, if you had a small group, let's say you had a group of teachers, math teachers, that you wanted to create an app for them to use in school, you could create a DPS app for nothing. You have the tools in InDesign. You could share that app with them, and they could use the generic DPS viewer, just like I'm using, and use the app in class. What you can't do for free is sell it to a bunch of people or make it widely available. And it does not create a file that you can email to someone. So that's kind of interesting. And as again, I got that because at one time you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah, our students do that now, actually, in class for their projects.
They make their own apps. Bully for them. Good for them. So very quickly, we've got 3 minutes until Q&A time. I want to show you the file that we were just looking at in DPS. I want to show you just very quickly what that file looks like in InDesign. So this is that image sequence. In InDesign, I have a folio overlays panel, and basically what was done here, I did not do this, was a folder with the series of images that needed to appear were these Photoshop files were in this folder. They have to have the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the end of them, so InDesign knows how to sequence them. And this panel let me point to the folder where they are. And they're set to autoplay. I could set them so that when the user taps on their tablet screen, they start playing in sequence. So it's kind of like a video. And you can swipe, and they could swipe back and forth. So you could have an image sequence that's looking at an object on the around the outside of an object, and the user could tap and spin the car around, those kinds of things. Just a couple of other things. Pan and zoom is simply a case where you have a large photograph, you put it in a smaller frame that masks it, and you simply go to pan and zoom and turn it on. And then the part that is masked out is what the user moves the image to. But you saw in the example in the app, you have to tell them it's there. And so there was a little icon that said tap to pan and zoom, right? You have to think about, if you have interactivity, you have to let someone know it's there. And that's another issue unto itself. Scrollable text, you basically take a text frame, and always dangerous to look at another file. Take a text frame and you click on it and you set a panel for it to scroll. And I'm not sure exactly what's going on with this file, so I'm not going to try to show you. Slideshows are very easy. You take a bunch of images, you stack them on top of each other, you make them something called an object state. So basically, interactive object state. You have a bunch of photos, you select them all, you say, bam, you're an object state. And then they are stacked on top of each other like this. You then create buttons that control them. So I have a button here, and the button is set to when it's tapped, it goes to which state? The first slide, or the next slide. And you tap it again, and it goes to the next slide down in this list of objects. So this is sometimes called a multi-state object. This is supported in DPS, but it's also supported in fixed layout ePubs. And you can do a lot with this, because it doesn't have to be a stack of photos and images. You could have numbers of, it's almost like remote rollovers. You tap on the numbers here and something comes up over here. You know, lots and lots of possibilities with that. So that is tablet apps. Now, in conclusion, where you go today depends. It really does involve your asking yourself who your audience is. Do you need to get paid? Do you just want to get the word out, or do you need to get paid? What devices do you want to support? Does it have to be the computer and the tablet? Can you use a PDF? Because if you can, PDFs are really good. Or do you need more like a Flipbook service? Do you want the interactivity? Is that the big feature? Then you need to look at a fixed layout ePub or an app. Okay? So here's the DPS workflow. It's a bit more complicated. These are the stuff that are supported. I'm not going to dwell on this. So we're going to wrap things up here and open up to questions. The handouts, the slideshow that I'm showing you now, along with a comparison chart of PDF readers for the iPad, tablet, app creation tools, etc., can be found at this URL, dianeburns.com/lecture. And all of the hyperlinks in this PDF work. So you can just click on them and go to the various places that are marked here. If you have any questions that we don't have time for tonight, we do have to vacate the room pretty sharply at 8:30 in about 15 minutes. Please email me. People that have taken training from me know that I really welcome questions. If I'm around, if I can answer them, I'm happy to do so, because I learn from any questions that you may have. If you're on Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter at DianeBurns_SF. And if you go to my account, there's a code to buy this book from Peach Pit for a 35% discount. It's about 5 tweets ago. So just go to my page, pick up the code, even if you're not on Twitter. Put it in. You can get 35% off is a pretty good deal on this. It makes it less than the Amazon price. So dianeburns.com/lecture. And then finally, as a reminder, if you want to get in more in-depth with this, UC is offering a hands-on class on InDesign and digital publications. We will get into the nitty-gritty of how to make buttons, how to make multi-state objects, how to create PDFs properly, fixed layout ePubs, as well as apps. Again, this is in the PDF that you'll download. The class starts, it's 5 Saturdays actually. We take Valentine's Day off because you can't have too much love in this world, and you don't need to sit in a classroom on Valentine's Day. Be on Saturdays from 10 to 1. Starting the end of January, and they have a fantastic lab here, so I'm very excited about that. All of the machines are running Adobe InDesign CC 2014.1, or is it .2? I'm not sure, but whatever it is, that's available there. So at any rate, if you're interested, I invite any of you who are to sign up for that class. And I'll go back to this page. Be sure to get that URL, and be sure and download, there's 2 PDFs, which is this slide deck. This is a PDF, right? And the other one is a product comparison PDF that was prepared by the content manager for art and design at lynda.com, and it has great information. It is from last June. Some things have changed. I updated some of the DPS stuff that I knew about. Okay? Questions, comments?
As far as workflow, if you're starting with print, you're starting with high res, is this whole export to app or ePub, any of those, is that all handled by InDesign controllably as far as how it downsamples, or do you have to have separate
The question
files?
has to do with image sampling, is that handled? In the case of apps, yes. DPS at least, which is the tool I'm most familiar with, downsamples to PDFs, and those PDFs are readable on either Retina displays or regular resolution displays. In the case of ePubs, there is some downsampling done, but you have to be a little bit cautious because iBooks that I'm most familiar with has two limitations. They do have an overall limit on the maximum size of your ePub, and I'm sorry, I forget what it is. And they also have a maximum resolution for images. Do you know what it is? And in fact, the Crown Point Press book I showed you with the color plates that was an ePub, we had to downsample all of those because some of them had more pixels. It's big, but there is a limit. So the process is taken care of, but you need to be aware of you need to learn if there are restrictions by the stores. And Kindle may not have any restrictions. Okay? Yes?
Hi, you said that PDFs can be listed on ISOO for free, for example. What are the fees involved if you're listing an ePub on one of those sales sites, iBooks, Kindle? What are how do the fees work? Is the book listed for free and then the cost comes when the book is purchased, or are there listing fees?
So, did everybody hear the question? Basically, what does it cost to put a book on iBooks? There's no cost. There's no cost to put it up. I actually don't know how completely free books work. I think if they're free, they're just free. But if you, when you log into to iBooks Connect, which is how you upload the book, you set the price for the book. And Apple takes some percentage per book, and I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. It might be as much as 30%. I don't think it's any more than that. But to put it up there, there's no cost, as opposed to an app where you can't even get it somewhere without paying for the tool that puts it up there, as well as any development costs for the platform you're going to. Peter.
Hi. Just a quick question. Do you know if Adobe plans on supporting previous single edition published apps that are standalone, or what's going to happen to them in the future if they want to update content or something?
If you have an existing single edition publication that's in the App Store, you can update it, but you can't publish anything new. It died on last year, I think. Do you have something up?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can update it. It wouldn't be a new pub. It would just be when the person opens it, it would say there's an update available and it would load. Good for you. Was it hard?
It was okay.
Yeah, but you're pretty...
Apple is more troublesome than building the app.
Yeah, dealing with Apple is more troublesome than building the app. Yes. Thank you all very much. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for your attention. I hope this was helpful, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Thank you.